Hollywood has always sold us dreams, glimmering lights, iconic stars, and perfect endings, but behind the silver screen, especially in its so-called golden age, the industry was built on segregation, blackface, and a system designed to silence anyone who dared to challenge it. In an era when speaking up meant losing your career, most chose to stay quiet to protect their fame, their contracts, their survival. Yet a rare few looked beyond the camera's glow. They saw the injustice happening right beside them, and instead of turning away, they said, no, no to humiliation, no to racist rules, no to a Hollywood that valued profits over people. Their courage wasn't trending, it wasn't applauded, it came with real consequences. But because they refused to sit down and stay silent, the industry and history were forced to listen. Orson Welles, the voice that spoke truth nationwide. Orson Welles was a prodigy, a director, actor, and writer who shook Hollywood the moment he arrived. But his impact wasn't limited to cinema. Welles understood how storytelling could expose injustice, and he used every platform he had to do exactly that. He recognized the brilliance of black actor Canada Lee and cast him not as a stereotype, but as a human being, layered, intelligent, dignified, in a time when studios insisted that audiences weren't ready for such representation. Welles proved they were wrong. His most fearless stand happened over radio. When the police brutalized a young black American named Isaac Woodard, most of the country didn't even hear his name. But Welles spoke it into millions of homes, demanding justice live on air. He called out the officers responsible, directly and publicly, week after week. This wasn't safe activism. It was a career risk with FBI surveillance included. But Welles didn't care about staying safe. He cared about telling the truth. And he showed that real power in Hollywood comes not from fame, but from fearlessness. Marlon Brando, a superstar who refused stereotypes. Marlon Brando didn't just change acting, he changed the meaning of celebrity itself. To studios, stars were supposed to entertain and stay quiet. Brando rejected both rules. He marched in the civil rights movement. He trained his voice to challenge racist casting norms. He went on late-night television and criticized Hollywood's treatment of black performers on air, with executives watching in panic from the control room. Brando refused roles that mocked minority characters and turned down huge paychecks rather than betray his principles. When he did speak, it wasn't polished PR language, it was raw, blunt truth aimed right at the industry that made him famous. People loved him for his talent, but history remembers him for his integrity. Brando proved that even the brightest spotlight isn't worth anything if it can't reveal what's real. Harry Belafonte, the activist who risked it all. Harry Belafonte wasn't just a star, he was a force. At the height of his career, he became one of the first black entertainers to reach global superstardom. But fame didn't make him forget where he came from. It gave him a weapon to fight back. Belafonte refused to accept roles that turned black characters into jokes or sidekicks. He turned down big studio money if it required him to reinforce stereotypes. He demanded dignity on the screen and equality behind it. And when Hollywood tried to silence him, he found another stage, the civil rights movement. While other celebrities offered words, Belafonte took action. He funded marches. He bailed protesters out of jail. He partnered with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not as a publicity stunt but as a brother in the struggle. Government agencies labeled him dangerous. Studios pulled away. Careers were ruined for less. But Belafonte wasn't trying to be safe. He was trying to make change. His legacy reminds us that being a legend isn't about albums sold or tickets booked. It's about who you lift up with you. Lena Horne, the beauty Hollywood tried to silence. Lena Horne had the kind of elegance Hollywood worshipped, but the industry only wanted her beauty, not her truth. She was light-skinned, talented, and magnetic, yet she couldn't escape racist rules that kept her from starring roles. Studios cast her in musical cameos that could be easily cut when shown in Southern theaters. She saw how other black actresses were forced into offensive caricatures, and she refused to play their roles. She stood her ground, and Hollywood punished her by shrinking her opportunities. But Horne didn't back down. She became a fierce critic of segregation in the military and demanded equal treatment of black soldiers. She spoke out against discrimination on set and behind the scenes. Her courage came with a cost. She was blacklisted during the Red Scare. Labeled too outspoken. But Lena Horne never apologized for her voice. She forced Hollywood to confront the truth it tried to hide and paved the way for future black female leads to exist with pride, not permission. Sidney Poitier, the leading man who rewrote the rules. Sidney Poitier walked into Hollywood and shattered every expectation the industry had for a black actor. He wouldn't shuffle. He wouldn't bow. He wouldn't play roles that diminished his humanity. Studios told him he was too proud. Audiences told him he made them uncomfortable. Poitier didn't change, he made Hollywood change instead. He became the first black actor to headline major films as a complex, intelligent, heroic figure. He insisted on scripts that showed dignity, responsibility, and emotional depth, never servitude. And when he won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1964, he did more than make history, he kicked down a locked door. Off-screen, he spoke with the same moral clarity. Even when pressured to tone it down, Poitier kept advocating for equal rights and authentic black representation. He knew he carried an entire generation's hopes, and he never let them down. Sidney Poitier didn't just succeed in Hollywood. He redefined who was allowed to succeed. Paul Robeson, the star they tried to erase. Paul Robeson was not just a performer, he was a global icon. An acclaimed actor, singer, and athlete, he had the charisma to command any room. But his greatest power was his voice, one that demanded justice wherever he went. Robeson refused to play roles that mocked black life. He chose characters with dignity, kings, heroes, leaders. He used his fame to call out segregation not only in Hollywood but across the world. After witnessing racism and colonialism firsthand, he began speaking publicly about equality for all oppressed people. The government hated that, so did Hollywood. Studios suddenly stopped calling. His passport was revoked to keep him from performing abroad. The press painted him as dangerous, simply because he insisted black Americans deserved the same rights as anyone else. Robeson lost opportunities, money, and fame, but he never lost conviction. His courage cost him his career. Yet his legacy of resistance remains a blueprint for every celebrity activist who came after. He wasn't silenced. He was unstoppable. Dorothy Dandridge, the breakthrough that should have gone further. Dorothy Dandridge had everything Hollywood claimed to love: talent, grace, star power, yet the industry constantly reminded her she didn't belong. She became the first black woman nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress, shattering barriers with her unforgettable performance in Carmen Jones. But Hollywood tried to confine her success. Leading roles were rare. Studios offered her only exoticized characters, women desired but never respected. She wasn't allowed to kiss white co-stars on screen. She couldn't stay in the same hotels where she performed. She could entertain the audience, but not exist equally among them. Dandridge refused to play roles dripping in stereotypes. She rejected scripts that degraded black women. And every refusal came with punishment. Her career opportunities shrank. Not because she lacked brilliance, but because she demanded better. Her journey was heartbreaking, a pioneer forced to fight alone. But she changed the perception of what a black woman in Hollywood could be. Not a joke. Not a prop, but a star. Sammy Davis Jr., the entertainer who broke through the back door. Sammy Davis Jr. was a once-in-a-generation performer, singing, dancing, acting with electric joy and masterful skill. He shared the biggest stages in America. Yet racism followed him everywhere he went. In Las Vegas, Davis could headline a show but wasn't allowed to stay in the hotel afterward. He had to enter through kitchen doors so white audiences wouldn't see him walk in like a guest. When he married a white actress, the backlash was so intense that studios pressured him to split, or risk losing everything. But Davis refused to hide who he was. He fought for contract clauses that forced casinos and venues to integrate. He became the loudest voice demanding equal treatment for black performers inside America's most glamorous playground. Sammy Davis Jr. didn't break barriers quietly, he smashed them with style, charm, and unstoppable resilience. His fight made it possible for black entertainers after him to not only perform, but belong. What changed because of them? History doesn't shift overnight, but every act of courage pushes the world a little forward. Because of these legends, Hollywood could no longer pretend that racism was just the way things are. They forced the biggest entertainment industry on earth to look in the mirror. Sets that once separated actors by color were desegregated. Audiences began to demand stories that reflected real life, not stereotypes. Slowly, the roles available to black performers evolved from silent background figures to leading characters with voice, hope, and depth. Their resistance helped fuel broader changes in American culture, inspiring new generations to use art as activism, fame as a platform, and storytelling as a tool for justice. Actors and filmmakers today inherit a stage that is still imperfect, but undeniably transformed. None of this progress was guaranteed. None of it was easy. Every door that stands open now was once locked, until someone brave enough kicked it down. We love Hollywood for its glamour, the lights, the awards, the legends, but true greatness isn't measured in applause. It's measured in what you risk for what's right. These stars didn't just entertain us. They challenged the world to be better. They sacrificed comfort for conscience, fame for freedom. Their courage rewrote the script of an entire industry. Because in the end, silence fades. Bravery doesn't. This is what real stardom looks like.